What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Down to the Wire. I'm your host, Brian Costa, and we have a fantastic episode in store for you guys. It is our third annual holiday special, and I got to say, we have a great special in store for you guys. We have a wide variety of guests on this show of fellow podcast hosts, influencers, people who know people who are very involved in the sports world. And I am so excited to get this thing going. First of all, I want to say that I know I haven't been, as consistent lately with my episode uploads. I've been, kind of just dealing with a lot of stuff from school, finals, all that good stuff. So glad to be done with that. Glad to be on a winter break, maybe get some more consistency when we go back in the spring. So looking forward to that. But we have some great stuff to talk about tonight. I want to welcome on all the guests. First of all, my good friend Josh Houle and teammate from this summer with the Worcester Ronnies. Josh, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. Great to be back on the show.
Absolutely. In the middle is the host of the Fumble Rooski podcast, Adam Wright, one of my good friends.
Thanks for having me on the show. I think this is my first time being on the holiday special, so that's going to be great.
I think it is. Yeah. I think I had you on the quarantine special back in April of 2020, but glad to have you on this one.
Yeah, I think that was actually my first ever on any type of podcast episode or anything. So
That's
that was
wild.
interesting.
All right. And then on the far end, we have the man of the hour, John Warren. John, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing good, John. Glad to have you on with us. And then also we have some people joining us on on video with us coming all the way from Canada. We have Mr. Joel Laflamme. Joel, how you doing?
Not too bad. It's like I said earlier, it's actually colder here than it is at the North Pole. So that's a fun fact for where I am.
That's crazy. And then finally, down below, we have Mr. Ian Inangelo. Does great work on TikTok covering the Celtics and all that good stuff. Ian, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. How's it going?
I'm doing good, man. Haven't seen some little things on the video screen right now, but we'll take care of that in just a second. As we start things off, I want to say that, there's some crazy stuff I want to talk about. First of all, in MLB news, Carlos Correa, we all thought he was going to the San Francisco Giants. The deal seemed to be done. And obviously at the 11th hour, he fails his physical and, all hell breaks loose and proceeds to basically go to the New York Mets in a crazy 12-year, what was it, $315 million?
That's correct. Yeah.
Absolutely wild deal. Boys, I'll just start off with you guys. What do you think about all this? Josh, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that we take out of this, it's the second largest sale that the Giants took in the same week, because there was the reports of Aaron Judge signing in with the Giants that lasted about a total of 7 minutes. Then he resigns with the Yankees. And then they make that big splash with Correa, and it's like, okay, you still got one of the big sweepstakes. Then you hear the news about something impending with his physical, and then all of a sudden he's not, and then Mets pick him up. I think the Mets are doing the right thing here. I think they're going for the big. You've seen how much they've spent over free agency as well. They've got Verlander, but not only Correa, Verlander. They've re-signed Nimmo. They've got a lot of big names there, and I think with Correa failing that physical with the Giants, I think it gave the Mets a great opportunity.
No, absolutely. It gave him a great opportunity. Now, Joel, I want to throw it over to you. Obviously, I saw you covering this on your channel. What is your whole take on this craziness?
Well, the craziness of this year and the value that they're throwing out to shortstops is just insanity. The trust that major league general managers have that they're paying $25 million for a 38, 39, 40, 41-year-old shortstop is a really, really good idea down the road. But what happens if has Correa actually taken that physical for the Mets? Yeah.
I don't know if he has. I mean, frankly, I'm just going to say that
what if he fails that one?
I don't know. I think that the Mets probably, what are the not the demands, but what are the kind of like the ramifications? Like, what are their physical kind of like standards? What are they?
Yeah, are there different standards for making the Mets? Like,
I don't know.
Push-ups and you're on the team. Like,
it might just be like, oh yeah, 2 push-ups, you're good to go. So I don't.
Just $35 million is what he lost for failing that physical, which is just shocking to me, right? Like, you go from being a self-evaluation of $350 million, but you didn't prepare yourself for that one physical, and then $35 million goes down the toilet.
Yeah,
that's pretty wild. But yeah, I don't know. My like I said, my opinion of that is Correa has played, I believe, 150 games once over 8 seasons, and that's in his 20s. Mm-hmm. So now let's roll the dice on his 30s. with big money.
That's
With it's kind of scary. It's not the position that usually ages very, very well unless you're Cal Ripken.
Yeah, that's fair. John, what are you kind of thinking about this whole situation? I know that you're a big baseball guy. What do you think?
Honestly, I think it's yeah, like it's crazy thinking about that. Like the biggest takeaway I had about the, to go like kind of hometown, like was the Red Sox thing. Like I was kind of okay with letting him walk. Like I felt like I was one of the guys, as much as he's a hometown guy, you're gonna pay him and he wants to get paid for the rest of his career, but for that much money, I mean, like you can really
Talking Xander?
Yeah, I'm talking Xander. It's like
Yeah.
I kind of agree with you. Like you got to get young at one point, like eventually in sports. And I honestly think like even with like the whole Xander thing, like that's honestly the Mets, like they're going after the big name guys. I mean, they completely are like how much above the luxury tax right now? I think it's like,
I think their payroll is like 380 million.
I think it's over that now.
I think, with taxes, they're in the 420-430 range right now.
Yeah,
That's
it's crazy.
Wild.
That is crazy.
Yeah, their payroll with the luxury tax is more than the payroll of 12 teams entirely.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, Ian, what are you thinking about all this? I know you and I worked together, with the Woo Sox over the summer. So I know you're big into baseball and following all that. I know that, traditionally you're more on the Celtics side and NBA fan, but I know you have a baseball background as well.
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting to I guess we'll talk about Correa first. The Correa contract was interesting because you don't normally see that. And everyone thinks like when you get the notifications from like Jeff Passan or anything, it's like, oh, Carlos Correa signs this contract with the Giants pending a physical. And you never ever think about the physical part. And the fact that
It's usually a formality.
Exactly. It's just kind of like they have to say that. But the fact that it actually came back and bite him in the ass, I think I saw something where it was like something about his leg. I don't know. I
Okay.
saw something about Bleacher Report that talked about Correa's leg being an issue with the Giants. But it could also be the Giants just not wanting Correa and just having cold feet and not wanting to sign him. But that's that. And now that he's with the Mets are, they're doing the early 2000 Yankees thing where they're just throwing money at everything.
Pretty much, yeah.
And
Joel,
it can work, but
Go
at
ahead,
the
Ian.
same time, it's like, it hasn't always worked. I think the only team that had it work was the Dodgers, and they won the 2020 World Series.
Mhm.
And it just doesn't always work with the whole spending money on everything thing.
Pretty much. Yeah, Joel, sorry I cut you off there, Ian. I want to throw it back over to Joel for a second. And Ian mentioned Correa's leg. Joel, I know that you had said you saw some things, I think you mentioned on your channel at one point that there were some issues you saw with Correa, like base stealing wise and kind of just doing some stuff over there. Is that something that you could believe you believe could possibly come back to haunt him and be an issue down the line?
Well, it's always legs. Like your length, your durability in the game is your legs. You look at sluggers falling off and they're like in their 30s, it's usually legs. Mm-hmm. And with Correa, he hasn't stolen a base in 3 seasons, so it's not like he can get any slower. You can't go to negative base stealing from 0.
Yeah.
But it's, to me, that's always going to be an issue with him. If his legs get worse at 32, that's going to be really, really, really no good. But to me, like this whole the idea of getting younger and be willing, like there's certain positions in the game that you should stack your team with youth, like shortstop, center field. Like Blue Jays brought in George Springer hoping that he would be a solid center field option for them, going into the future. And here we are a year later and they're trying to move him to another position. It's just like trying to trust your 30s on those hard to play positions is just usually not the best way to go forward. You can play third base till you're 40. You can play first base till you're 40. You can corner outfield and DH, but center field and shortstop are not positions to go to 41.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that there. As we do look forward though with the Mets, they're kind of the way that they are building up this team, it is incredible. You do have to give like Cohen and all them credit for what they are doing. They are going for it all right here. I mean, they're going to have Correa now out of position playing third base, which, potentially could help his legs and stuff down the line, which, obviously could prolong his career. I just am wondering though, like, how is this all going to work out? They did lose DeGrom this offseason to the Rangers. And, a lot of people might say that, that may not be as big of a blow as people would assume, since DeGrom kind of plays on a little league schedule. But I am wondering how that pitching staff is going to deal now. They have Justin Verlander, they have Max Scherzer. How's it all going to work out?
Yeah, it's a wild situation. They're really putting all their eggs in one basket, going for it now, becoming like Ian said, the early 2000 Yankees. Verlander is a really, really interesting case there, to go from, like, DeGrom leaves, you bring in a 39-year-old, but he just won the Cy Young, and he just had Tommy John, and you got to think maybe this guy's going to be able to pitch, quality innings till he's probably 43 or 44. Scherzer, that lineup looks disgusting. They re-signed Diaz for making what, $105, $110 million closer. First time a reliever's ever cracked 100 million. So they're going for it in every aspect of the game. And you got to love it, because it makes the other owners get off their, asses and spend the money that they all have, right? At least that's what you want to see. You want to see other owners put in a situation where, like, well, if we're going to be competitive, we got to go at that luxury tax, and we got to get up there, because he's going to spend, and he's got the money, and clearly he loves his team so much that he's going to give them the best opportunity he can with his wallet. And that's what you like to see, these guys getting paid what they deserve. So
no, absolutely. And that's the thing too. To kind of transition into the next thing I wanted to talk about. The Boston Red Sox obviously are, not exactly paying guys what they deserve. Guys like Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers now being described as having a deal that's galaxies apart from where their sides want them to be. The Red Sox haven't necessarily been paying up and doing what they should be doing. And it's kind of interesting to see that juxtaposition. Adam, I know you're a big Sox fan, as am I. What are your thoughts on the whole thing right with them?
All right. So it's understandable letting Bogaerts walk, because what he wanted was just too crazy. He wanted 8 years, 100. It's more so the years than the money for me. That would scare me away. But finding out that their final offer was 4 years, 90 million, that's embarrassing for a guy who really represented your franchise, who was the face of your franchise for years. He's the prototypical Red Sox who was, a great impression on the younger generation. He was a role model. You never looked at him in a negative sense. And you offer that guy 4 years, 90 million before. And I believe that was the last deal that they offered. If they were to give like 8 years, let's say 6 years, 160 million, that would have been okay. They go out holding their heads high. Now you're looking at this, and it's kind of like a John Lester situation, where they offered 4 years, 70 million before the season started. You pissed him off, and then they're not able. He's not going to talk to him anymore because for the rest of the season, because you're looking at it, and they're like, well, you gave me an insulting offer.
I mean, it's
what
not
did you
like
think?
it's not like a John Lester situation. It is a John Lester situation.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is a John Lester
back
situation.
Entering 2014, we offered him 4 years, 70 million, and he went out and basically earned double that with the Cubs. I think the final deal was like 7 years, like 140 or something like that.
Yeah, but like, just to change gears real quick from Xander Bogaerts to just the entire operation in general. So there's no way, like, I'm starting to feel kind of bad for Chaim Bloom, because let me explain, because we knew what Chaim Bloom was. We all knew what Chaim Bloom was back during his Tampa days. So do you think John Henry hired him to spend big money, you hire an analytics guy. So he's going to do what he's going to do. He's clearly brought in as a scapegoat for John Henry, who just wants to cheap out. That's what it seems like.
I mean, I don't know. I think, listen, I think Heim's clearly in over his head with what's going on right now, but I think it's beyond him. Listen, I think that the Henrys are using him as a scapegoat. I will say that, but it still doesn't excuse the actions that have gone on with the franchise. From reports that I've seen, Henry brought in Heim to get under the luxury tax threshold. It did not, from what I've heard, it did not include him having to trade Mookie Betts, but they said if you need to do that, you could do that. But, we just need to get under the luxury tax. Heim said, okay, I'm going to trade Mookie Betts because that was the easiest way to do that. Now that we look at this, it's okay, what is the best possible situation here? And when Heim did trade away Betts, I think he went on the Section 10 podcast with Jared Carabas, all those guys, and he ended up saying, hey, this was a really tough move for us, but we did this so that way we would never have to do it again with Xander Bogaerts or Rafael Devers. He said that live on their podcast, and that came back to bite him in the ass. I mean, you don't say that. And now the fact that it's getting to Rafael Devers and it's okay, you didn't want to spend money on Mookie. You decided that you were going to lowball Xander. Are you really going to try to do this again with Rafi Devers? Because if you do, it's going to end poorly. I mean, Ian, I'll pass it off to you. I know you're a big Sox fan too. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, with the Bogaerts thing, I understood why they didn't want to re-sign him. I mean, he was going to be in his 30s.
Sure.
You have Marcelo Meyer coming up eventually. In a couple of years, Marcelo Meyer could take over and be the shortstop of the future. That I'm fine with. But when it came to Rafael Devers, I really don't understand the thinking of, let's just wait. Let's just wait and see. We didn't sign Mookie Betts. We didn't sign Xander Bogaerts. We traded pretty much everyone from that 2018 World Series team. I mean, the only people left are Sale, Devers, and Ryan Brazier. So it's kind of a tough thing with that. And I mean, if I'm Rafael Devers, why would I want to stay? Mm-hmm. All the people that you had, that he was coming up with are gone. I mean, Xander Bogaerts was basically his best friend. And at that point, why would you even want to stay? And I mean, this could happen. This already happened with other teams too. I mean, look at the Nationals with Juan Soto. Juan Soto wasn't going to play in Washington, so they had to trade him. And if you're the Red Sox at this point, it feels like if you're not going to get a deal done, you have to trade him for a huge prospect haul. That's kind of where I am with this whole Devers thing.
I mean, that's the thing I'm nervous about though, Ian, is because, we saw the prospect haul that Chaim Bloom tried to get for Mookie Betts, and that blew up in his face. I mean, it was, the deal that we got, it was Alex Verdugo, who was going to be, the immediate big league talent. Jeter Downs, who was going to be the big prospect part of the deal, and Connor Wong, who we've seen in parts in Worcester. Recently in news, we saw that Jeter Downs just got designated for assignment by the Sox, which is basically them just saying, all right, we're giving up on this guy. And, now he's been claimed by the Washington Nationals. Josh, just seeing all this kind of go down, where are your thoughts with this?
Yeah, so I'm watching all the moves the Red Sox are making, and I'm seeing not only this, the one thing we haven't mentioned yet, JD Martinez also walked, signed 1 year with the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. And then we signed Justin Turner.
Yeah.
We have Justin Turner and Rafael at the are we almost preparing to accept the exit of Rafael at this point?
I don't necessarily think it's the exit of Rafi. I think that Turner's more going to be used in a DH role. And I think that
we need a lefty bat.
Yeah.
I think it is. I think he's a lefty.
No, Turner's a righty. No,
righty.
No, yeah.
Bad.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We just honestly need his offensive power.
Yeah. And I think that he's going to be used more in that DH role and kind of be done like that. The only thing I'm wondering though is why wouldn't they just go and bring back JD Martinez? I know he had a down year, but I looked at the money that he got and it was 1 year, 10 million. And then I think you compare that to Justin Turner, which was 2 years. And I think that the first year of this deal was 8 million. And I'm like, really? I understand that there is a production, standard with it, but, Turner is, he's 38 years old. He's on, he's getting closer to 40 than JD is. And I'm like, okay, if you're getting close to that age at that point, your body starts to break down. I know you're still hitting all these homers, but for a guy like him, I don't know how much longer he's going to last. And in my opinion, even at some reduction, I think that there is still a place for, like that, like for those lovable like people and lovable characters that, that like, fans like to see. I think that there is still a value in like, the Red Sox bringing back JD because he is like a good clubhouse guy. He would be someone that would get that clubhouse involved. And, even if he's not, all himself and, is maybe like 85% of the player that he, was, I think that he can still provide like a boost that, just bringing in a new guy like Justin Turner, you can't necessarily see.
Yeah.
Yeah. John, you want to say anything about that?
Honestly, I kind of agree with you. I mean, my biggest deal is that I'm okay with letting Xander like walk, like let go of Bogey. As much as that sucks, we all grew up watching him and everything else. As long as we try to at least figure out something else, endeavors.
Yeah. All right. Before we do transition on the next segment, obviously, we saw Turner get brought in. And one of the things that ended up happening there is, we ended up seeing Eric Hosmer also get DFA'd and then eventually released by the team. And, I thought that Hosmer was, nothing special for the Sox last year, but I was surprised that we did DFA him based on the fact that we were not even paying basically a penny of his salary. I think we were giving him a minimum deal because the Padres had the rest of his contract. And I'm just surprised that for a guy with his, background, obviously, maybe even if the bat isn't all the way there, if he still has some of that defense at first base, I think that, that would have still had some value for him rather than put Justin Turner over there, who is traditionally a third baseman, have him try to, become more comfortable over there. I don't know how comfortable I am with Tristan Casas and Bobby Dahlbeck really still splitting the reps over there. I think that, Eric Hosmer could have still provided like a good veteran presence over there.
Yeah, I mean, I hate Bobby Dahlbeck so
much. That's fair.
I hate him so much.
Good stuff.
Because you see him hit a couple of homers in spring training, and you're like, oh, here we go. Yeah, finally.
He's finally going to catch on this year, and he never does. He never does.
I feel like Dahlbeck's just stuck in his cycles where he just hits a major slump. MLB, they send him down to Worcester. All of a sudden, he'll hit 6-7 home runs. They call him back up, and it just repeats over and over again.
Yeah, it's an endless cycle. It's never fun. But yeah, boys, I gotta tell you, we've talked a lot of MLB news. I want to switch things up and jump into the NFL. Adam, obviously this is your forte. I know you host your football podcast. I want to talk about that horrific end to that Patriots game on Sunday, because what the hell happened? I mean, I am first game back from school. I'm, with my family. I'm sitting on the couch. It's a great day. It's a great day. I'm not going to lie. I'm having a fantastic time. I'm like, the Pats are on, around with my family. I'm enjoying life, done with school, stress-free. And I'm like, okay, the Pats go down. They're, down by 14 points. And, traditionally for the most part this season, that's kind of been, that's kind of been the nail in the coffin. They've been dead after that. And the fact that they were able to battle back and tie up the game and, even take the lead at one point, I was like, wow, this team, they might be making some strides. And then we see, I kid you not, the dumbest play in the entire history of the National Football League. The day before it happened, I watched Adam Sandler's The Water Boy with my roommate and saw the play where he literally just throws the ball to the other team and he scores the game-winning touchdown. And to see that actually happen on a field, I never thought I would see something that stupid. To see something like that actually occur on a football field, it blew my mind. I mean, Adam, I'll give you the floor with that.
There's no two ways about it. It was maybe the dumbest play I had ever seen. And I'm glad I didn't see it live, or else I would have ripped my hair out. I was at a Christmas concert and I was following along on ESPN Gamecast.
Sure.
I was pretty happy. They had the lead 24-17. They came back from down 17-3. And there was 2 minutes left. I thought, all right, we're just going to coast here. It's great. And they tied the game. We're going to talk about that in the next segment. Yeah. But the way this all happened, and hearing the reports that that whole thing was all improvised by the players, tells me that there's really not much trust between the players and the coaching staff.
Yeah, it's
right?
gotten bad.
So you look at it, I mean, just look at the play call to begin with. They ran the ball when you have 10 seconds left.
Yeah.
On that, you either take a knee and you go to overtime, or you chuck it to the end zone. There was like 10 seconds left, so you can't really go to the sidelines for a field goal, but you do one of those three things.
Yeah.
You don't run the ball with Ramondre Stevenson. That was just, and like, and looking at the beginning of the drive, you had the ball at your own 25.
Yeah.
32 seconds left, 2 timeouts. Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense gets a field goal. Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills offense gets a field goal. Patrick Mahomes might get a freaking touchdown. And you couldn't get even into field goal range. You had to do the pitch lateral play, which Jacoby Myers, I feel kind of bad for Jacoby Myers. It was a brain fart. It was a mistake. But what's not a mistake is the play calling throughout that game. You can even look at their drive prior, where they had the ball with 3 minutes left. All you had to do was get a first down, maybe 2, and you have the game on ice.
Yeah.
And you ran the ball 3 times. You're not trying to run the clock out at this point. You're trying to get a first down and then run the clock out. And you ran the ball with Ramondre Stevenson twice on 3rd and 10 and 4th and 10.
Yeah.
2nd and 10 and 3rd and 10, excuse me. They punted on 4th and 10.
Yeah.
But like that's just bad situational football. And I get it. That the play afterwards, it was clearly not a touchdown. We'll talk about that later, but it shouldn't have even happened because the game should have been over at that point already. And it's the same thing with the play afterwards. The players didn't have trust in Matt Patricia, which is a big time red flag for this Patriots organization, considering we're looking at a Patriots team, which is usually very well coached, very disciplined, not disciplined, and very poorly coached.
Yeah. No, it went downhill real quick. I mean, here's the thing. I'll say this. As a sports fan, obviously I root for the Boston sports teams. That's, the teams I grew up rooting for. And, I will root for them, till the day I die or, whatever. Here's what I'll say though. There are moments when I'm watching a game and something happens and I just completely forget, what team I'm supporting. And, it could really hurt my team or do anything like that, but I will just like kind of stand there in awe or even, applaud. And there are a couple of moments that come to mind. They're mostly in baseball. Once was in the 2013 ALCS. It was Jose Iglesias making just an absolutely crazy play. He robbed like David Ortiz skies a ball into left field, and Iglesias runs out backwards from like shortstop, makes like this incredible play and like just scoops the ball with his glove for the out. And it, like, I remember I stood up and I clapped then. And then the second time was I was with John. And I know you can't see John on the screen right now, just doing some things. There you go. There's John. But yeah. So so the second time it happened, I was with John and we were at Fenway. It was Red Sox and then Indians at the time. And I believe we were watching Chris Sale pitch, and it was a pretty solid game. Hanley Ramirez comes up to the plate. So, this is the date of that around like 2017-ish. And he hits a ball into right field, and we see Austin Jackson make that incredible catch going over the wall in Fenway, which was the catch of the year of that year. It was, an absolutely amazing catch. John, do you remember that?
Yeah, it was actually insane. Like like you couldn't even be mad at him because that's impressive from Fenway.
Yeah.
Like no one could be mad at him. Everyone was actually kind of just more in awe that he made the play, which is like a first from Boston fans. Like I'll be the first to say they're very, very passionate. Boston fans and Philly fans.
Oh yeah.
Very passionate.
Don't sleep on Toronto fans either.
Yeah. Well, we got one in the call. Joel, I want to say, do you have a moment like that where it's just like it doesn't even matter like what team what team you're supporting? It's just like you just have to respect the play.
I'm gonna date myself, but I'll go to the flip by Jeter. It's a Yankee. I apologize, but the flip to get Jeremy Giambi not sliding at home in the 2001 ALCS was just like that was a play that'll sit in my brain forever. And I'm not any Yankees fan by any stretch of the imagination. That's got to be the last team that I want to cheer for.
Yeah.
But when I saw that, I was like, what are you doing there, Jeter? You're doing your worst defensive run saved in Major League Baseball history, and you're making that play. What are you doing?
No, it's like there are just some plays like that where it just doesn't matter. And that's what the Chandler Jones play was to me, where, I see him running down the field. And part of me was just like, that's an incredible play. And then the other half of me, I think I said out loud, I think I just said, that's what you deserve. You deserve to do that if you're going to play that stupid. And, Adam, you talked about like the lack of trust that they have in the coaches. I don't think this is necessarily a coaching issue. Like, I don't think the coaches told them, hey, do this in this situation.
Right. It was improvised.
No, it was improvised. And I think the problem is that there are two plays that you can run in a situation like that, where it's like, okay, we're going to run the ball with Stevenson. If there's a pitch play there, you do like a pitch, but if nothing can happen, you go down and you play for overtime. There's the other play is you don't let the ball die. And you do that play essentially if it's like when you're down in a game and you're trying to score that last second touchdown because you need the points in order to win. That wasn't the case here. If Stevenson goes down, we go to OT. That's the part that really makes this insane to me, is the fact that they had the opportunity to go on. And frankly, with the way the Raiders were playing, there was a chance that they were going to, take care of business in OT and possibly, shatter dreams there. But I really don't, now you don't know what it would have looked like, which is like the crazy part.
Right. So that's my point, is that the players took things into their own hands and they tried to turn it into something that the coaches didn't really want.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them for questioning the play call at the end of the game to run the ball with Ramondre Stevenson, especially since he's been one of your best players so far this season.
Mm-hmm.
And you're risking an injury on the last play of the game. But the fact that they took matters into their own hands is not only a disciplinary issue, but it's also it speaks to how bad the coaching has been, that the players are fed up.
Yeah. No, I agree with that there, Adam. I mean, it's been one heck of a time with them. Josh, what were your thoughts on that play?
Yeah, I remember I was watching this live. I was in the middle of studying for my last final. I was on a break. I'm like, all right, let me switch to the game, see what happens.
Yeah.
And it's 2 minutes left. It's right before the game tying drive. I just had this bad feeling watching it, because the first couple plays of that Raiders drive where they tied it up, I'm like, why are we playing soft zone coverage against them? We have the lead. We need to be aggressive on them in order to stop them from scoring. It's almost like Bill wanted to play them in overtime. But then the game goes on. The cut touchdown happened, which, like I said, we'll talk about later. Then that last play happens. I just remember standing up from my seat and just mouth open. And I'm just like,
damn.
I just deflated.
Yeah. Nah, it definitely was it just is one of those moments that just completely takes you out as a sports fan. It was a mind-boggling play there. Ian, I kind of want to ask you this. So, when we look at this team right now, I know you're also, a Boston sports fan. So I want to get your perspective on this. With this team right now, should this be the breaking point for this offensive staff? Do you think that, this is the point where changes need to be made? Because I thought it should have come weeks ago, but I think when you see this, even though the fact that, the players are taking responsibility for it, good, well-coached teams don't have this happen. Teams with, professional offensive coordinators, this stuff doesn't happen to them. Do you think that this should be the breaking point?
Honestly, I mean, I'm kind of shocked. Like you said, I can't believe the breaking point hasn't even happened yet.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Like, I mean, I was there for the Bills game on Thursday Night Football. I'm surprised nothing happened after that, after you got embarrassed on national television. But then last night, after the last game, watching probably the worst play in NFL history. I mean,
not probably the worst.
No, the worst.
This passes the butt
history.
fumble, because the butt fumble, it became a blowout game, and yeah, sure, it ended up in a touchdown. But, again, he was trying to just run a play in the middle of a game. This game was, effectively not over, but, the outcome was pretty much decided. It was like, okay, this is going to go to overtime.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where it's like, if it hasn't happened already, when is it going to happen? I have a feeling that nothing is going to change till the end of this season.
Yeah, I feel
Even
like
if they're out of the playoffs, nothing's going to change, and they're just going to fire Patricia in the offseason. And who knows, maybe they won't even fire Patricia. Maybe they'll just assign him to something else. But if he's the offensive coordinator next season, there's no way this Patriots team's going to have success.
No, there's no way. And I just don't know what to do with him anymore. Cause like I respect Matt Patricia as from a defensive standpoint. I think Matt Patricia is really good at calling a defense. I think that, he had those championship caliber defenses for Super Bowl 41 and then for 49 and 51. Sorry. But offensively, it's just a different side of the ball. And it's just it takes a different type of mindset. Same thing with Joe Judge. I think that, Joe Judge, when we brought him back in New England, I was like, okay, cool. He's going to be, a special teams guy for us. He was great at calling special teams. That's basically what got him his job with the Giants. And I was like, cool, like that's a great opportunity for him. But to see these two, who did flame out with their organizations and basically, in a sense, had issues with their quarterbacks and players there, be in charge of the one player that we need to manage the most, which is Mac Jones. It's his second year, which is the most impactful year for a quarterback. The fact that we let it get to this point is ridiculous. Like people were saying like, hey, like, you really don't want to mess up the second year for a quarterback. Like that could really like send him down a bad track. And they, you saw like the cliff as the car was driving towards it and you decided not to put on the brakes, but actually, Thelma and Louise it and just go straight over the edge.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand their thought process anymore. Like, I mean, we know how good Bill Belichick is. We're never going to not talk about the greatness of Bill Belichick and what he's done with the Patriots. But right now, it's just one of those things where it's like, I mean, I don't think this, but is Belichick washed in a way where it's like some of the things that may have worked years in the past, is that going to work now? Mm-hmm. It just feels like he's trying to implement plays. And the same thing with Patricia. Like his offense is basically predictable. It's kind of like an Ask Madden offense where you just kind of just pick the best available play that you can
situational.
Think of. Exactly. And it's like, it's just one of those things where it's so frustrating. And I don't really understand how they're not frustrated. Like, I don't understand how you're not hearing more from, coaches, like other coaches in the organization. I know Belichick always kind of keeps that stuff under wraps. But with this situation, it's like, how are more people not coming out and being frustrated with the way that the season is going? Because they've been in a bunch of winnable games this season. And whether it be one thing or another, it always feels like the offense stalls out when they need it the most.
Yeah, I think the thing is, I mean, you're seeing the local kind of, people around here call up guys like Bill and whatnot, and say like, oh, this might be his time to go and whatnot. But on the national like stage, like ESPN, you're not seeing anyone really call for Bill's job. They're saying the same thing. This isn't a Bill Belichick style offense like this, or this isn't a Bill Belichick, like this isn't your typical Bill Belichick run team. Yada yada yada. Something's up this year, and it's like, well, if you're watching the way things are going, it's not really like the season's gotten away from him. There are decisions that have been made that have put him in this situation. John, I want to throw it over to you. I know that you obviously played football at the high school and college level. You've been in that locker room. You've been in like those locker rooms and been in that atmosphere. What do you think about, the coaching right now for the Pats, and just like, where do you think that, those players are at right now?
I think, honestly, you got to think of it from a football perspective, I guess. And I'll elaborate on that. You got to think about this from, this is your coach. You're seeing him all the time. He's running you into the ground. It's a little bit different than baseball, track, everything else, because you're physically hitting the other person and you get time in between and you set it up. It's almost like chess, but then you're going full speed.
Okay.
In order for that, you need to be very good at what you do, and everything needs to be very precise.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to do that, you need to be very well coached. And I think Belichick kind of just leaned on the guys he had prior.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it really fumbled him, because now you're going to lose draw. Like, it's very silly, because realistically, if I was Bill Belichick, like hypothetically,
sure, go ahead.
Right.
Go ahead.
I would, like, you bring Joe Judge back, but you're bringing him back as the same job he was already successful at. You're not bringing him back as a quarterback's guy, because he was never a quarterback's guy. Not with Belichick, not with Nick Saban. He was under Nick Saban's staff, same time, right? He went from Saban to Belichick, then Belichick to his own job,
mm-hmm.
or his really good resume.
Yeah.
Patricia, I mean, the guy's a literal genius.
He's
Like,
a rocket scientist.
Literal rocket scientist. Pretty good defensively, more of like a game manager type deal, like bend don't break type defenses in those years. But yeah, I mean, you bring him back just to the same, like, kind of, you bring him back defensively. But the biggest thing all the coaches were saying about this is that the Belichick way, kind of, some years you'll be coaching offense when you're a defensive coach. He's more just like strategizing everything. So really, no one knows what's going on. And as the probably highest paid coach in the league, hypothetically, because no one really knows how much he makes, like, I think he's in the hot seat, honestly. I think he's realistically in the hot seat because look at the Cam Newton year. I mean, like, you had a bunch of opportunities to win games. People don't talk about that. You could have made the playoffs. So what was it? Like, there was like 5, 6, 7, 8 plays that he lost every single play, like late in games that you could have like made. And then like, turns around. So,
and here's the thing, I'm not going to question the greatness of Bill Belichick, and I'm not going to say that he can't coach in this league anymore. But what I will say is that, there are certain coaches for, certain situations. John, would you say that, for yourself that, some players just respond better to, some different coaching styles in that locker room?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, there's some guys like, you go from like high school where it's like, at least for me, like it was very like yell in your face, like get at you. And we were all okay with that. Like we all understood like he's just wanting to make us better. And then you go to a college level where it's kind of similar. I kind of thrived off that. So I was like, okay, I'm used to this. And some guys don't really take too well to that and criticism. So there's definitely aspects of that as well.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's necessarily the thing. I think people are just starting to lose hope because, Bill not naming even the starting quarterback, Mac Jones, Billy, like Zappi, like until the last like time, like it doesn't give you much confidence as a player.
No,
like let's say like Zappi aspect is like, okay, maybe I'll start, maybe I'll not. For Mac's aspect, it's the complete opposite. You're tanking him and then you name him the starter. Like it's just little minor mistakes, honestly. And I think it's some of the players, when you're on a losing team, you get really frustrated with each other too. Yeah. I mean, Matt Slater was saying that, like, have pretty much like post game, like they asked him about the locker room and everything, and he was just kind of like irate about it. He was like, a lot of guys, aren't really trusting a lot of our guys, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it resonates on all levels, I think, of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, realistically, you're about to lose like coaches like Gerard Mayo. He's gone this upcoming year. He should have been the defensive coordinator, been the linebackers guy forever. And now he's going to give it to Steve Belichick.
Yeah.
He's not going to like fire his son. So that's the kind of thing that sucks when you have such a great coach, like the Lombardis, Parcells. Parcells, I mean, was even run out of his own organization.
Yeah.
So you got to think about that too. So
yeah, I mean, even Tom Landry, who was a great Hall of Fame coach with the Cowboys.
Yeah, exactly.
First thing that Jerry Jones did when he came in here, when he bought the team, was fire him. So I mean, I'm not saying that maybe it's not Bill's time now, but I think it is something that does need to be looked at. Joel, I want to ask you about this because this is a kind of an issue that's, gone beyond sports. We're seeing this happen in Major League Baseball now with guys like Tony La Russa and the Chicago White Sox. There's kind of been, a youth movement there. And it's like, okay, like, this guy's in his 70s, like he came out of retirement to coach this team. And, there had been some issues with them. What do you think of just about this situation? Do you think that, these older coaching philosophies are getting pushed out and, the new wave is taken over?
Well, like for football, I think the only time that, the players have taken control of the play calling and that been a success was probably Rudy to get Rudy on the field. But, for baseball, it's a weird scenario because you literally got two ways of thinking that are clashing with the analytics and the classic game calling mentality of the previous generations. But you see that Dusty Baker, back-to-back years at the World Series, wins one. Snitker with the Braves, like there still is tremendous knowledge in that past generation on how this game works and knowing every single scenario and having that experience is something that, you know, you can come up and be young and have all of the gadgets and the tech and the new wizardry when it comes to the mathematics of every situation, but you haven't been there.
No.
You know, and who do you want to be with? Do you want to be with somebody who's, you know, been in the war, who's fought the fight, who has the experience, or somebody who's like, I've got a new way of handling things and let's see how it works on the biggest stage of all with probably the most successful football team of the last 50 years. So it's tough. It's like I said, it's generational mindsets clashing, and in some ways the youth will thrive and take advantage and lead the game in a new direction, and in other places the veteran leadership will be exactly what it is, and you'll see those veteran minds still be as successful as they were. So it's really, especially in baseball, it's a really tough situation, because I at least go with a little bit more of the old school approach. When you get to the playoffs, you have to be able to play a different game that is based literally on every out that you're coming across. So you can't just let the analytics of a 162 regular games season take place in that short span that is the playoffs, because that's just not how it works. You have to analyze everything moment to moment. So
absolutely. Yeah. So the next thing I want to jump into after all this, you know, involving the Patriots and just really the league in general right now, it has been just the abhorrent calls from referees around the league. Josh, I'll probably start with you on this, but we've seen this happen with multiple teams now. Obviously, in that Pats game, Keelan Cole, who ended up tying up that game for the Raiders. You know, a lot of people saw his foot stepping out of bounds, stepping on the white, and however, it was still ruled as a touchdown in the end. And everyone was like, how the heck did the refs not see his foot going out of bounds? There's even a photo that, you know, originally looks like his foot is in bounds, but he has like a white, like surrounding, like on like a white kind of like heel or like toe part on his cleat that makes it look like the sideline was extended further than it actually was. And you can kind of see his toe step out of bounds. We've seen it also. We also saw the pass interference no call in the Commanders Giants game. And then probably the biggest concerning thing of all was the Terry McLaurin, Terry McLaurin, the Commanders wide receiver, getting penalized after a ref told him that he was onside, you know, told him he can move up more, and getting flagged immediately as soon as the play, as soon as the ball was snapped. So we've seen a lot of issues there. You know, I know that, you know, you were watching the Pats game, have seen some of these other games. Where do you stand on all this right now?
Yeah, I think the thing that really stings for me the most from the Patriots Raiders game is that the best view that they would have had of that touchdown of Keelan Cole is a view that's only available during Sunday Night Football, the pylon count.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand why that view is only available for one game per week, when it would probably be like the most important view on like so many sideline touchdowns. I think that's one of the things that's most shocking.
Yeah, that is something that kind of did shock me, was the fact that I mean, I do realize Sunday Night Football, it's prime time. Like there's gonna be I understand the idea of more cameras. But what is shocking to me is the fact that the NFL would be like, they're not limited to the number of cameras that they can use. Like I could understand more media cameras. You want to get guys coming out of tunnels, doing all this, but I feel like if you're going to make a game even and equal, like it should have the same amount of camera angles down each sideline. The Pats, you know, did get flexed out of this game. So had that game been on Sunday Night Football, there is a chance that we potentially get a different result in that game, which I don't know. The fact that just the time of the game that you get depends, can alter how many cameras you have on. I could understand if it was playoffs versus regular season and you have more cameras in for playoffs. That makes sense. You're trying to make sure, every single call is, right. And because these are the biggest, games, these, this impacts players, like not players, this impacts team seasons. So I don't know, like I think that there should be, a limit, I think, in the regular season of the certain angles that are used, but Adam, I'll throw it over to you. What do you kind of think about all this?
So it should be the same amount of cameras for every game, especially since that, like, I guess for television purposes, just because it's a bigger audience, I understand kind of what they're doing. But since they're using the same ones for replay, then it should not have it shouldn't even have the chance to alter the results of the game, because if that touchdown doesn't stand, then the Patriots most likely win that game.
No, yeah.
And now we're looking at it, and there's 10 different things that happened afterwards that we wouldn't even be talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd be talking about a Patriots victory and perhaps
potentially a Patriots victory. Because here's the thing, like it wasn't like that was their, like that was going to be the Raiders' last play. They were still moving down the field, and I think that they score there. But here's the thing: had that scoring drive got extended out a little bit longer, there's a chance that the Pats don't run that stupid run play that they chose to run because they would have said, all right, we're backed up against our own end zone. Let's just kneel down and go into OT. So maybe there's a chance that had they run it out, it would have actually allowed us to, it might have actually saved us in a little bit, but you really don't know with that.
You don't know, but it was what? It was a 36-yard touchdown pass.
Something like that, yeah.
It was somewhere around there. You have to go. They need a touchdown in that play.
Mm-hmm.
They can't settle for field goals.
No.
So you have to go all that distance and also be able to score. That's a tough ask with the amount of time that they had left.
Sure.
So if that touchdown's overturned, then that's a very, very small chance that the Raiders come back and tie it, especially with, we've talked all night about the Patriots play calling. Think about Josh McDaniels, how it's been going there with Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller and company, how things have been going down there over at Vegas.
Yeah. Ian, I want to throw it over to you. Obviously, you're talking about Vegas and talking about, betting and stuff like that. Obviously, Ian, being a basketball fan, about Tim Donaghy and all the controversy that happened to him when he was rigging games in the NBA. I want to now kind of like talk about the Terry McLaurin situation because, you see him creeping up on the line. And, he's talking with the ref. He's saying, am I good? Am I good? He's like giving him the ref is giving him a thumbs up. He's like, you're good. You can move up more, and flagging him as soon as it happens. And then obviously, like, we see all this kind of breakdown. He's talking in the locker room. He's like, I don't want to get fined, but I did have an issue with this. And, there's a whole breakdown there. So I want to ask you, do you think that a Tim Donaghy situation could happen in the NFL theoretically?
I mean, theoretically, I feel like it could happen in any sport, really.
Sure.
There are situations and plays where that can alter a game, like the Terry McLaurin situation and the missed pass interference call. I mean, there's also another thing to say where it could just be there's bad refs, because there's bad refs and umpires in every single league. And it's just kind of one of those things where, and it sucks that McLaurin would have gotten fined if he actually did say something about it. But at the same time, it's one of those things where it almost feels like there's nothing you can do in that situation because, what are you going to say? It's just one of those things where you want the best referees out there. And it's also kind of interesting how it's hard to really discipline refs when they make bad calls. Because there was a situation in the NBA where I think Tony Brothers and Spencer Dinwiddie. It was something like this along the lines of Tony Brothers saying something to Spencer Dinwiddie, and he was supposed to get fined and he was supposed to get suspended. The referee was, and it just never happened. So the NBA just didn't care, and they just kept it going. So it's kind of one of those things where it feels like there's bad refs in every situation, and who knows? Maybe there is a Tim Donaghy situation going on in the NFL, and we just don't know. Because if you think about, remember the pass interference rule?
Oh my God.
Oh.
I mean,
and how you could potentially overturn it and nothing happened with that. So it's one of those things where who knows? Maybe there is something going on. You just have to figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like, you're either going to I would say this, you could find pass interference on any single like play. If you really were to dissect it, like it's really almost the plays where, the refs most of the time it is egregious calls where they're calling it, but there have been a lot of no calls too, obviously.
When it's that blatant.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I think that, there is an issue we are seeing here. I don't know what we're gonna, what that solution will look like if we do try to, get to one. But I don't know, John, like, you've been alongside, like, being on the field, like you've had to interact with refs and, you've even refed yourself. But, what is it like, that player ref kind of, relationship on the field? Like, you're talking with them, making sure you're good, stuff like that.
Well, usually, I mean,
I know you play defense, but still.
Yeah, I mean, usually you just make sure, like, after the play, you hit the quarterback, you get him up, you listen to the whistle, you go to the whistle. I mean, they are the officials.
Mm-hmm.
So listen by that. But I think most people don't realize is that Most of these refs, like this is like a second job to them almost. Like most of these guys have like other jobs. I mean, like the guys who are even like, I know this is very lower level, but like high school, college, I mean, those guys have other jobs
Oh yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah.
And then
NFL though, they're kind of more set.
I mean, no, actually, most of them like have like second time jobs. I mean, like MLB umpires as well. They're doing other stuff. I mean, some of the
Some of like
NFL
the newer
judges,
ones,
yeah.
you could
I mean,
say.
like they got some of them are lawyers and different stuff. Like they could really be whatever. Like most of them have to have a second job. And I think most people don't understand as well is that the NFL, you know, it's an entertainment industry. Like at the same time, like if a call goes wrong or something, like who knows? It really could be like it's all like very, you know, like what if and like, you know, like Joe Rogan type like thinking and everything else. But I mean, honestly, like you can really speculate everything. Realistically, you get down to the rules of the rules of the game. Like they were blown calls, but you know, Tuck rule, like at that time, I mean, you can really think like, well, it kind of got back at this one, even if it's like not on as high stakes, but you really got like it happens, you know, blown calls happen all the time. I mean, the Terry McLaurin thing, that's ridiculous, honestly, missing that open because he checked with him, obviously. I mean, there are flukes, of course, but still, like, that's a little crazy. I mean, some of DeMarcus Cousins' ejections back in the game, he would say like one word, or he would just look at a player and he would
gone.
get tossed.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it like really all depends also on the ref or the umpire because sometimes they're more lenient than others.
Makes sense. Joel, before we do go on to our final segment of the night, I want to talk to you about this because a lot of people are just about replay and just referees and umpires and officials in general. MLB has seen replay. I believe it's not even 10 years. I think 2014 was the first year it was implemented, and then with trying to think, with MLB, they're also looking at robot umpires for like strike zones and whatnot. Do you think that there is a point to where we're going to see like the human element of the game? Like, how much can the human element of the game still be in it and replay? I don't know. I'm kind of just throwing you a bone here. What are your thoughts just on all this right now?
Well, I feel like the gambling has brought it to a new level where we want every single play to be accurate because people have money on every single play.
Yeah.
Right. The thing in baseball that's interesting, like we got to the point in baseball where have you guys seen like what they're doing in the Arizona Fall League with the individual pitch? You can you can tap your helmet.
Yeah, like a challenge.
Yeah, you can individual pitch challenge now. So it's like that is an element of the player contradicting a play, and if they're right, they get to voice because like only they have the eyes plate, right? Oh, they're the only one there. See, like you got your manager in the dugout, and like that looks like it was over the plate, but I'm only getting one. I'm only seeing it from the side, or you're not getting the full perspective of it. But the player's there, and he goes, "That thing is 4 inches under my kneecap. I know that's a ball." You get that challenge. I feel like you'll get that type of element brought into football a little bit with like because baseball has gotten to the point where every single play can kind of be challenged aside from I don't even know what's off limits now. Like,
yeah, it's pretty much you can kind of challenge anything. Football, there are like certain like stipulations and things that you can challenge. Like, and I know like too, like under 2 minutes, like the coaches can't challenge. It has to be initiated from the booth, stuff like that. So, there are like certain like different rules and regulations that they do have. I don't know. It's been crazy to look at so far. I've been, part of me is just wondering though, like if they're going to be able to have all these different replay angles and like be able to look at a play for 5 minutes and then potentially still make the wrong call. It's just like, is replay really even worth it? Like should the play just be called as the ref sees it, or like are we still like I don't know.
Technology has made us so much more precise now than we were 20 years ago when we didn't have the little strike zone box telling us that, oh my God, that thing was like, you didn't know. You had to definitely, the audience had a different perception of the entire thing. But now that you can go to 4K, 100 frame per second replay, and you're like, yeah, his foot was right exactly where it needed to be, but it's that fast in real time. You know, it's we strive for absolute perfection in the refereeing and
I think
the rules and everything being put into play, but it's in the moment, it's so impossible to do some of these things, especially where you're sitting. I'm a guy in this position and I have to like control what I can see, but then so many players are out of my view. So many players are moving at a speed that I can barely comprehend. And
then you get it right or wrong, and then you're on the wrong end of a newspaper article.
Exactly. And I'm based on this one solo perspective of standing here and seeing the game from this angle. Like I always figured for hockey and maybe even for football that there should be an official that has a higher vantage point, right? He's not on the field, but he's like, you see the play callers, the offensive coordinators are all up in a booth looking down on the game from this high angle. It almost makes sense to me to have an official up at that angle, seeing the game more from above as opposed to game height, you know?
Yeah, I think the XFL tried to do that. Like the first iteration of the first new integration of the XFL tried to do that, where there was like a above the field field judge basically, where like you could challenge a play and you could challenge it to the field judge that was sitting up there. And I mean, I think that would be huge because I feel like that's kind of more important to have, especially in football where those plays kind of happen, that you can have that vantage point, you know, potentially to get it overturned by somebody.
Yeah.
Can I break some news?
Yeah, I think we have some breaking news. This is some breaking MLB news that just came across our plate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Trevor Bauer just got reinstated. Pretty much reduced his suspension from 324 to 194, so he already served that technically. So free agent.
Yeah, so no, he's still under contract with the Dodgers for one more year. So after reading this article, the Dodgers basically are now able to choose whether they want to reinstate him to the 40-man roster. I think he's owed $32 million. You know, obviously Bauer was facing those sexual assault allegations, went through the courts there and, you know, dealt with some of those, dealt with that scandal. Joel, I know you had been following this. I'm
messaging Rachel Luba right now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Isn't that his agent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know you had been following this situation closely. You've been posting about it. You know, you're probably a lot more informed of this than I am. What's your current, what's your thoughts on this as it's, you know, just breaking now?
I just never understood the situation when you got players who were given a much lesser suspension who were found guilty, and they were still in the process of finding out whether Trevor Bauer was guilty, and they laid that 3-year suspension on him, bigger than anything that had ever been, you know, like as a part of a, like opposed to a lifetime ban. Like that would be the worst, but 3 years, we never see anything like that in baseball. And then the fact that the evidence and the fact of the matter had not been resolved, and they had made that decision to kick him out. It's like he's going to sue Major League Baseball and he's going to make a lot of money.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, I know. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say it's I always figured that it had something also to do from the Major League Baseball standpoint on the foreign substance issue, because he had been literally the whistleblower for all that stuff. He had shown the league like that this was happening, and it turned out to be as massive of a cheating scandal as the steroid era.
I mean, didn't he basically like make a statement? He said, "Hey, if I was to use this stuff, I could go out and win a Cy Young," and then the next year he won a Cy Young.
Yeah, beyond like I believe it was in 18, he said, he just like, I'm going to use it for one inning. Check out my spin rates. Goes up, puts up like 500 RPM on every single pitch, and goes, "Why do you think I struck everybody out that inning? Does anybody want to talk about this? Does anybody want to talk about what I just did there?" And nobody had anything to say. And he goes, "Okay, you know, this is a shortened season, 2020. I could beat DeGrom. I could be better than DeGrom if I use this stuff. I just want you to know that." And he was. He puts up Pedro Martinez numbers in like 1999. And he goes, "I told you." And the Dodgers are like, "Bring that stuff here. Bring that stuff to our organization. We don't want you just as the pitcher." we want all that goop that you have, in your
Bring it over from
arsenal,
Cincy.
so
Oh yeah.
everybody else can use it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what was happening. And then he gets levied this huge, Aroldis Chapman can pull a gun on his wife and put 8 bullets in a wall and nothing happens. But yeah.
Yeah, Josh,
This league.
I want to throw this over to you. Obviously, I know it's been a little bit since I talked with you. So I know you obviously are a catcher for Colby College. You do, so you're working with pitchers, and I'm not going to say that any of your pitchers are doing anything in games. I don't want to implicate any of your fellow teammates, but let's just say like in a practice or for some fun, some teammates are maybe just messing around with some stuff. Have you ever encountered like this sticky stuff and like how it like if you have, how is it like impacted like players and their like their performance on the mound?
So at school, I've never personally like dealt with any of the sticky stuff, but definitely a couple summers ago, I definitely had a couple interactions with it. It was more of a science experience more than it actual was like during a training session. It was more in my backyard with my friend. We were seeing like, does it really affect movement? It wasn't down to the science that like Trevor Bauer was like all this RPMs, all this movement, how much inches of break. It's like just from the general point of the eye, that how much can it change? It changes a lot more than you think.
Yeah.
It's like you can throw a slider at the speed of the fastball, but have a foot and a half of movement at the same time.
Oh,
it's scary how much that thing can change. It basically turns the baseball to a wiffle ball. It's scary what that stuff can do.
Yeah. No, I know for myself, so I didn't pitch, but I played also in some summer leagues back in the day. And I this was a year after I was ineligible to play in the league anymore. I aged out, and I went to go back to see like the team play, and I just see like this kid go out on the mound, like, and it's a summer league. It's like they're not playing for anything. It's just basically just roided up Babe Ruth in a sense. And this kid, I literally see him, like, he ends up saying, "Yo, like he's doing the sunscreen and rosin thing, and like he just has it on his arm," and this is like right at the height of the sticky stuff, like, so right in like 2021. And I see him going out on the mound, and like, it's not in his glove. It's just like on his forearm. And it's not like he's like casually going to it. He's literally like in the windup, just rubbing his arm, like rubbing his fingers and then going into his glove. I'm like, dude, you are going to get ejected from this game. And I don't know. Like, I mean, I will tell you this, it works. It freaking works. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what the Dodgers do end up doing here. I think that, what is the PR situation going to look like at this point? Obviously, if, Bauer can be found innocent in the court of law, but is Dodgers Nation, is that fan base still gonna, hold them kind of accountable in the court of public opinion? That's what I'm wondering is, I think they'd love to have him, that's from a talent wise standpoint, he'd be a great addition to that pitching staff, but what are they going to decide to do with him? That's what I'm wondering. Ian, what are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I kind of agree with Joel. It was kind of one of those things where it was like a lot of people have done a lot worse stuff, but why did Trevor Bauer get this huge extension? I mean, a huge suspension. And it was kind of interesting because, like, I mean, we know what happened to Alex Rodriguez and why he got the huge suspension. Does that mean that what Trevor Bauer did was that much worse? Like, it was that extensively worse than what Alex Rodriguez did? And it was just kind of one of those things where, I mean, he's openly said that it works. He's said it all the time. And I could see the MLB just holding a grudge about it because the MLB always seems to hold a grudge about it. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be kind of interesting to see what the Dodgers do. If I'm the Dodgers, I don't really know if I bring him back because I remember when the first initial backlash happened, they took out all of his merchandise out of the team stores. They took out, any promotion. Like, I think they had like a promotional bobblehead with him and they took him off of that. Yeah. It's kind of one of those things where it kind of feels like not to make a pun, but a sticky situation with the Dodgers because, I mean, if you're the Dodgers, it feels like you've tried so hard to distance yourself from him. So I have a feeling they're not even going to reinstate him. That's just my opinion on that.
Yeah. Joel, have you heard anything back from Rachel at this point or no?
No. I just sent her a message. Okay. 2 minutes ago. I assume that if this is just breaking, they're probably like popping champagne.
Yeah. Can I ask what you said, or is it like
it's just like I just said congratulations on Trevor getting reinstated and
expect a YouTube video to drop soon.
Yeah. I'm definitely gonna go make one. It's really like the Mets are gonna swoop in and grab him now.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
or imagine him going to the Padres,
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
and
No,
playing
here's the
with
thing.
Watch him go to
Tatis
the
and,
Astros.
If
Yeah.
if the Mets swoop in and take on Trevor Bauer, I think I'm gonna lose my mind. And here's the thing: the Mets are my NL team because my dad's from Long Island, so the Met I root for the Mets whenever the Red Sox aren't in it.
10 years.
Yeah, no, like
I like the Mets being this money spending team now. I don't know if you guys are into like quantum physics or anything like that, but I'm starting to believe in the like multiple dimensions of CERN like opening up, or like this is we're in another dimension. The Mets are the big money team. This isn't real. We're
I
in
know, it's
another
crazy.
universe.
It's like
here.
the Mets, the
multiverse stuff.
Padres. It's like what the hell is happening? I made an episode back with Grayson Mortimer at one point, and I called it the franchise swap, and it was about how the mindsets of the Padres and the Red Sox have essentially flip-flopped, and we've basically completely gone into bizarro world at this point. It's absolutely wild. So I don't know what's going to be next for Bauer. Potentially maybe he does go to a new team if the Mets swoop in. I think that I think the sun might explode at that point. So that's some absolutely crazy news that has been broken on the show. But we are winding down towards the end of this thing. It's been a crazy show, but I have one more segment that I want to talk about. And Ian, I thank you for being here for so long. Obviously, I want to get your take on the Boston Celtics because lately they've been dealing with some struggles. I know Rob Williams is starting to finally get back into the fold, but they started off this season incredibly hot at a historic rate. And, recently with some losses to the Orlando Magic, the Indiana Pacers, it's been a very the team has kind of taken some steps back lately. What's your take on all this?
Well, if I was going with what some of the public has been saying, I think we should just blow it up and trade everybody at this point. Like, I mean, it's not like any team could ever have a problem and ever have, regression to a mean at some point. Like, I mean, I talked about this in a video I made one time. It was like, I mean, the Celtics had a historical offensive rating. Like, they were literally the greatest team of all time on offense to start the season. And, I mean, everyone knows that there's going to be some sort of regression to the mean. Like, I loved how great the Celtics played, but I knew that they weren't going to be this historical type offense, because we've seen this historical type offense try and work before with I think it was the 2018 Rockets with James Harden and Chris Paul. We've seen an offense like this similar, and it worked up until it didn't.
Yeah, eventually you have to come back down to earth.
Exactly. When you live and die by the three, there's going to be times where you're gonna die by the three, and what has been happening is that they just haven't been hitting their threes. And I mean, you can look over the past 5 games; they've shot like 20% from three through those last 5 games that they've lost in. And the only game that they've won in this tough stretch is the Lakers game, and that was only because Jason Tatum, put up an insane performance. And it's one of those things where, I expected this to come eventually. But at the same time, I don't think we should be 100% concerned yet. I think the biggest thing is going to be how they bounce back from it. Because, we talked about this, about the whole Ime Udoka thing where, he was super hard on them. He was always there. He was always this encouraging. It's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back with Mazzulla and how he handles this. Because the way they bounce back is going to be more of an indication than, their struggles right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't know what. I mean, I'll say this: I'm frankly glad that this happened now rather than towards the end.
Oh yeah, 100%.
After the All-Star break, we're heading into playoffs, and it's like, oh boy, this team is falling apart, and they could be a first or second round exit. Like this could get ugly real quick. I'm happy it's happening now because it's like, okay, we got off to a ridiculous start, and it's like, okay, like we're breaking history here. Everyone's saying like we, might just be like the 86 Celtics or like, like the freaking Bulls at this point. It's like we were going off, and it's like, all right, like you do have to kind of, get back to reality at some point. And the fact that it happened now, they can say, all right, we're having these issues. What's going on? We have to address it. And, you can do that in this time, do it before the new year even comes into play. I think that, it gives them a great opportunity to, just reflect and figure things out. Cause I mean, they're also dealing with some changes in the lineup now. Obviously, Rob Williams is coming back, and while everyone's been talking about the positives of him getting back in that lineup, and I think that he's going to be tremendous for us down the stretch, there still is the adjustment that has to happen to, okay, your lineups are going to change, your rotations are going to change. How is that going to affect players? Like, if certain players' minutes are going to get cut because Rob's going to be in there, that's going to, maybe that ruffles some feathers a little bit. So I think that for them, they just need to, get past this, whenever a break comes up, whether it be the All-Star break or whatever's to come at some point, they're just going to need to really relax, regroup, and, hopefully come out stronger on the other side of it.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Unfortunately, Brad Stevens isn't the next coming of Christ. Everyone thought he was at the beginning of the season, was like, wow, this is a genius move. This guy is so smart.
Yeah.
Everything else. But I mean, yeah, like it was gonna come soon. So rather now than, in the playoffs where you see JT struggle, he is your team.
Yeah.
I mean, Jaylen Brown, the entire team realistically has had struggles. I mean, Grant's still slow. Like that's the big thing. Like he's so good, but he's slow.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't really crap on Grant. I can't crap on Grant, but I get what you're saying. It's kind of one of those things where you'd like to see a little more out of some of the bench guys.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's gonna happen for sure. I mean, but the best thing I really like about this, the good positive takeaways, they're still playing their own game. They're still shooting the three. They're gonna stick with that. I like how they're not trying to change it up just because, oh, we had a slow streak. We got to change it all up. We got to throw away everything we've had. So I like how they're doing that. They just got to keep hitting shots. And honestly, I think they need to step it up a little bit against the defense too, because they blew a lead to the Lakers. So,
yeah.
So I agree with you there. Ian, I want to ask you, we've been talking about Jason Tatum and, the impact that he had, leading that comeback against the Lakers. Obviously he struggled in the playoffs last year, was dealing with a shoulder injury, which he said he had going on. Is looking like a really solid MVP candidate this year. Do you think that he actually has the ability to continue that throughout the season and, go on to win the MVP this year?
Yes, I think, at the beginning of the season, if you asked me this, for however optimistic of a Celtics fan I am, I don't think you could have told me that Jason Tatum would be an MVP candidate this early into the season.
Yeah.
Because we've seen in years past, Jason Tatum has had rough starts to a season. Last year, he was shooting like 23% from three. He could not hit a shot to save his life at the beginning of the season, and the Celtics struggled. And the reason why the Celtics have gotten off to such a hot start is that Jason Tatum is coming into his own, and becoming this MVP type candidate. And I think the narrative around the Celtics is starting to change, because it felt like at the beginning of the year, Tatum wouldn't have had the narrative on his side to even win an MVP. But the fact that the Celtics had such a great start, if they can end the year as the number one seed in the East, at least by a considerable margin, I don't really think how you don't have Jason Tatum as one of your leading candidates.
At that point, you're at least looking at him. Like
exactly. It's one of those things where, maybe, you have the voter fatigue with Giannis. Giannis is one of the greatest players we've ever seen. He could win MVP every year. It doesn't feel like they want to vote for him again. You're not going to vote for Nikola Jokic again because he's won it the last 2 years. It feels like the only people that you can talk about is either Jason Tatum or Luka Doncic or Kevin Durant, because Kevin Durant's been insane. He's having an insane stretch right now.
Yeah.
So it feels like one of those things where it kind of feels like it was kind of his to lose at some point, where if he can just continue the trajectory that he's been playing with, if he can find more consistency, I don't expect him to drop 40 points every game, but if he can continue playing the way he's playing, continue finding a consistent shot, and if the Celtics can have team success as well, I don't see why he couldn't be the MVP this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say too is I think that he definitely has the ability to go win an MVP. But for the Celtics in general, what's also helped them is the fact that not only has Jason Tatum stepped up, but Jaylen Brown has also tremendously. Yeah, he stepped up his game a ton. And last year we saw him in the finals really kind of be the leading offensive scorer for the team when Jason struggled. And at this point, he's more of a 1A than he is a B player at this point. It's more just like, he's 1A, like Jason's 1 and he's 1A, rather than, it being like A and B, or like the 1 and the 2. And the fact that he's able to step up and be that guy when Jason struggles is huge for us. I think that You look around the court too, you see Malcolm Brogdon contributing and doing what he's doing. Marcus Smart still, putting up quality minutes for us. And, even guys like Blake Griffin, who have been, pretty impressive for us since coming over from the Nets. I think that, overall, this is a good, deep group, which I think the Celtics have struggled with in the past. It is their depth and just how they match up with those bigger guys down the stretch. I think that for the longest time, I've always said like the Celtics need to get a big man. And I think that Rob Williams is a solid option down there. I think that he, probably would have won Defensive Player of the Year had he been healthy that whole year. But, I think that they still could use that big man. But I think that with what they have right now, they're in good shape. Josh, do you have any thoughts on that?
I haven't been watching the Celtics too much, but the games I have caught, it was early on in that win streak. I just think that overall, we just fixed a little rut we're in. If we return to the form that I'm not expecting us to win, 11, 12 in a row, like at the start.
Yeah.
But if we keep returning to what we had before, like going back to what works, it's like, I think if we take the pressure off the top players, and just focus quality more over like a full team presence and just not focus I think Jason Tatum, whenever we say like MVP talks around him, whenever he hears a noise, like especially when he got to the finals last year, I observed it's kind of when he feels the pressure a little too much.
Mhm.
If he feels the pressure too much during the regular season, I think that's when the stats take a little bit of a recession.
Yeah.
So I think if the whole team excels well around him, I think that's when the Celtics are best, personally.
Yeah. Adam, before we wrap this thing up, you got any final thoughts on the Celtics?
Just with the Celtics, I just think it's too small a sample size to really hit the panic button at all.
Sure.
I think it's just a sense where the media is overreacting because we're just so used to them winning games left and right. And now that they've entered a stretch where they've lost 5 of their last 6 games, now it's just a different feel. And we've really been going through this ever since it's been the second half of last year where they've been winning games like this, and now they're not. And everyone's just overreacting. We just need to sit back. It's a long 82 game season. You're not going to be great the whole way through. So unless they really start to continue this for the next month or so, then I'm not too worried.
Yeah.
Looking at the MVP debate, it's Tatum or Doncic. And honestly, Giannis is in the conversation, but I agree with Ian. It's really kind of become we've seen him play to this level every single year, and people want to see someone new. And a player who I've actually looked at a little bit, Cleveland's been very underrated, and he's not going to win MVP this year, most likely. But Donovan Mitchell's been pretty good this year, and they're within a game of the top seed in the Eastern Conference. And for such a young team, for him to lead them in his first year there, it's pretty impressive. I think he should be an MVP candidate. Not saying he should win it or lose it, but that's a player who I kind of like.
Yeah.
I think if not getting ejected for silly reasons, John Morant is probably going to win MVP.
Yeah.
But I mean, just one last thing. Just it says a lot though about the Celtics that probably all seen the John Morant interview. He's talking. They're like, "Who you really worried about in the West?" He's like, "No one." He's like, "Just got to really push through the Celtics." And he's like, "That's it."
Yeah.
So I mean, speaks volumes when a player of that caliber is really just talking about a team like that, especially this early on.
Yeah, I mean, they're the team with their name on with the name on their back right now. So hopefully they can come out of this rut and continue down the stretch. But boys, I gotta say, it's been a great holiday special, but unfortunately we are now down to the wire. So we're going to wrap up what we talked about this episode and send you guys on your way. Obviously, first of all, I want to say thank you to Josh, Adam, John, Joel, and Ian for coming on this podcast. It's been a great time having you all on. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having
me.
Yeah. Great being here.
Absolutely. So obviously we started things off today talking about Carlos Correa and the whole saga with him going from the San Francisco Giants, leaving them and going to the New York Mets. We talked about how the Boston Red Sox really have had many struggles this offseason financially, even though they have plenty of money. John Henry is just choosing not to spend it. The future of their organization, and we touched on some things there. In NFL news, we talked about the Patriots and that humiliating loss to the I almost said Oakland Raiders, Freudian slip there, but the Las Vegas Raiders. And we also talked about refs and just everything going on with them, some of the bad calls that have been going on around the sport. And finally, we wrapped things up talking about some NBA news, this Boston Celtics latest on them with their recent struggles. And we also got to cover some breaking news with Trevor Bauer being reinstated into the MLB. So really great episode. Really glad with how this thing turned out. I'm excited to head into the new year. Got some great things planned with Down to the Wire. Hopefully some more athlete interviews, some more just sports commentary coming on down the line. But I'm really excited for what's to come. But I guess I'll just say from Down the Wire, I'm Brian Costa.
I'm Josh Houle.
I'm Adam Wright.
John Warren.
Joel Laflamme.
Ian Inangelo.
And this has been Down the Wire. Thank you guys for watching the 3rd annual holiday special. Thank you guys so much. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you guys celebrate. Take care and peace out.